Alrighty, YouTube, welcome back to my channel. I'm gonna get right into this video because I've recorded it 3 times already, and while recording and doing more prepping for this video, I realized that I can explain it to you. I need to get a pictorial deck because y'all just won't be able, I don't think you guys will be able to understand where I'm coming from without seeing the cards themselves. That doesn't mean I can't necessarily do the video. It's just, I'm like, it's taking a lot more work than I thought, and I don't want to keep sitting here and not give you guys any content. But I guess basically before I give you an in-depth look at what the cards are, I'm just going to talk about them. Excuse my roommate's dog. She's kind of yappy when there's other dogs or other people around the apartment from outside, so that's why she's barking right now, so I apologize. And if you hear any banging or clashing or sneezing or coughing or whatever, it's just my roommates just got home, so they're kind of doing their thing, and I'm doing my videos a little bit earlier, so I apologize in advance for all the noise. But I'm just gonna get these videos out here because I feel that I've waited too long to try and make these perfect, but I'm just gonna have to break these videos up, get a little bit more resources, and just tell you how it is. So before I did this video, I had all of my notes strung on my wall. Like, I had almost 2.5 walls full of information, plus this wall right here, so technically 3 walls of information about tarot and all this other stuff and the cards and all these other things, which you would probably see in some of my previous videos, but I have since taken those down, just because I want them ready and accessible, and I don't want them to get ruined because I hand did all of that work myself. So while doing those cards, I had a very simplified version of what those cards meant and what they were used for. So based on those notes, I'm just going to give you guys what the major arcana is, what the minor arcana is, and then we're going to go into different spreads. And then I will eventually give you a breakdown of what each card means when I can get you a physical video of what those look like, because I want to give you guys the original cards and then encourage you guys to go and get your own cards. And while we are here talking about different tarot cards, if you guys are watching, I would encourage you, until I can figure out how to edit and get you some physical pictures and things like that of what the cards look like and how I can better explain them to you, follow along with information. Go and do your own research. Go and try and get you guys a tarot deck if you feel like you want to work with those cards, because going through the information while you have the physical cards and you're studying different spreads, I find really helps. So yeah, if you really feel like, man, I have a calling to tarot, or you just find it very interesting and you want to practice, please follow along and look at all the cards and stuff. But anyway, getting into the major arcana cards, I personally, after doing all my research, have concluded that the major arcana cards, at least in the way I interpret them, they are basically the 22 stages of life that every person goes through. The ups, the downs, the common things that almost everyone goes through in a 22-part sequence throughout their lives. And it's not just, you go through these once and that's it. Anybody can go through any of these stages multiple times in their own life. Andrew Waite basically has said throughout his book, from what I have interpreted, because that book, I finally have broken down that book, and that book is just so mind-boggling. I think because the way the book has been written, considering the time it was written in, is very different than the times we are now, because I have noticed that Arthur Waite is very misogynistic. He's very close-minded a lot of things, and he's also very arrogant in his study. And given the time that his book was written and the time he was alive, it was like the late 1800s, early 1900s. So, you know, when it came to like the cards like the High Priestess, or the Strength card, or the Star card, or all these other cards that had feminine placements in it, or like even the Lovers, when it is mentioned that there's any female archetype in any of these cards, even in the minor arcana cards, he was very condescending and very, again, like closed-minded when it came to women, specifically when it came to people who were of lesser class that some of these cards were inspired by. And even certain cultures that are rumored to like influence some of these cards and different interpretations of cards, it was kind of like his way was the only way, and if nobody saw it his way, he was just not having it. And I'm just like, dude, like, I understand that you have a different perspective. You kind of pioneered the definitive use of the tarot cards, which is fine. I don't mind you doing that, but I'm just like, man, the dude was rude. Just rude. But again, 1901, his views on tarot cards and the interpretation of those and the symbolism and all of that was valid, although I do not agree with his stance because of the times he was in. I'm going to list some of his views on the cards, what he said about like the basic. Sorry that my music is cutting in and out. The Wi-Fi has been acting weird these past couple of days. It's weird. We're just going to jump right into it. So the major arcana, according to him, is basically based off of the original card game from the 1440s and 1450s. There was 22 trump cards, so there's 22 definitive cards. There was nothing too deep about why there were that many cards specifically. He thought that basically the arcana cards, although they were trump cards like in a regular card game, they did hold some profound mystery to what the divine wanted via symbolism, but he really didn't give a clear definition, because he was basically like, if you don't see the fact that it's just based off of the 22 like original trump cards of the cards, like, I don't know what you're doing. And I'm just like, rude, sir, rude. But again, this is my interpretation of the book. People have different perspectives, so if you guys ever get a copy of the Pictorial Key to Tarot by Arthur Edward Waite and have any comments or opinions, let me know down in the comments. Just be nice about it, because if you are going to be rude, I don't care if your information is true or not, I'm blocking you. You won't be able to comment, because I'm all about growth and expansion. I'm not about ridicule and being rude to people. So basically, he thought that there was no real deep meaning to the tarot cards at the time, although they could hold some profound significance, but he really didn't care about the number of the cards. And really didn't see them as clarifiers. They were more of an interesting way of looking at life, I guess. Like, yeah, he was kind of weird. He was very contradicting in his studies. It was pretty interesting, because then when he breaks down the cards, he gives a lot of divine examples and symbolism and interpretation to the cards in its singular sense, like per each card, but as a whole he doesn't see any profound reason as to why they're significant as a whole. He only sees them as singular cards. It's weird the way this dude thinks. It's low-key annoying. But I believe that the major arcana cards are clarifiers to the big events somebody could go in your life, like go through in your life. Now the minor arcana cards are clarifiers to the major arcana cards, which are your pentacles, your wands, your I am so sorry. These people are fucking loud today. I don't understand. Every time I get on a video, there is always some background noise. I don't understand it. I apologize. But anyway, the minor arcana cards are clarifiers to the major arcana cards. And so, like I said, you have your cups, your pentacles, your wands, and you have your swords. Now, from what I have researched, let me actually get out my notes because there's a lot. Okay, give me one quick second. All right, so you have your suit of pentacles, which I have drawn right here, and those are you know, a lot of them have to do with like your career and, you know, like abundance and things like that. That's what the pentacles represent. Of course, it could be more than that depending on what reading you're trying to get and where the pentacles come up at, especially when you're using different spreads, so they can mean different things, but primarily it's used for like your career and abundance and trying to manifest things physically in your life, like materialistic things. And they're also associated with your earth sign, so that's going to be your Taurus, your Virgo, and your Capricorn, which I found very interesting. Then you have the suit of cups, and those are like more emotional cards, like more of your intuition cards and more of like what's going on in your inner self. And surprisingly, but not surprisingly, that is associated with the water signs, which is your Scorpio, Cancer, and Pisces. Then you have your suit of swords, and that is more dealing with conflict, change, figuring out life purpose and all of those other things, and overcoming fear and taking action. Those are associated with your air signs, which is Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. And then you also have one more, which I realized I did not pull out, so let me grab that real quick. I apologize. And then you have your wands card, and this is like associated with, you know, hard work, your determination, your drive to do things. Again, I also associate this with purpose, but I also associate this with like your interpersonal relationships, your friends, your family, your community, and that is associated with your air sign. I mean, not your air signs, your fire signs, your Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. So these are the major arcana cards: your wands, your cups, your pentacles, and your swords. Now I do have, which I didn't think to bring out before, but I do have your major arcana cards all the way from the Fool to the World card. So here are your first four. You have the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Emperor, and the Empress, and then the Emperor. They're not necessarily, from what I have seen so far, because I didn't dive deep into that study, but I didn't think about that before. For as far as I know, and I will get back to you guys on that once I do the research, they're not necessarily, I'm pretty sure they are, but I haven't found any correlation to any zodiac signs yet or any like element placements, but I'm pretty sure there are. I just have to figure them out. So before y'all come at me in the comments, I'm still doing a lot of research, and I've only been practicing for 3 years, but in my 3 years I am learning so much more than I ever have, and it's amazing. So you have those first four cards, and these, like I said, these are like the 22 steps or the 22 like cycles of life a person can go through, and it's not something you can go through like just once and that's it. A lot of people can go through these 22 stages of life multiple times. Then you have the other five, which is the Hierophant, the Lovers, the Chariot, the Strength, and the Hermit cards. I don't have their accurate pictures because I'm not that detailed of an artist, but I got your notes right here. And then you have the Wheel of Fortune, the Justice card, the Hangman, the Death or Rebirth card, and the Temperance card. And then you have the devil, the tower, the star, the moon, and the sun. Those are the next 5 right here. And then I'll go over what all of those can signify in a minute. And then you have the world and the judgment card. From 0 to 21, that's 22 cards if you count 0 as a number. But with the major arcana cards, like the Fool and the Upright, so like if the card is facing up this way and it's not upside down that way, it means like new beginnings, faith in the future, being inexperienced, not knowing what to expect, having beginner's luck, improvisation, and believing in the universe. That's in the upright. So basically, for like a shorter version, basically when you have the Fool facing you the right way, it's a good sign that you know you're starting on a new adventure. Go in with all of that passion, and you know, be like expectant of what's to come. It's good to have those things. But in the reverse, it's not necessarily bad. It just cautions you to, when you're going through a new like if you're starting a new project, or you're starting a new relationship, or you're going through like investing for the first time, or doing big things, you know, that you've never done before. It strongly cautions against like just jumping into things head on. Like, have a plan, and you know, like ask for help if you need it. You know, it's great to take risk, but make sure that you have certain things in order, because not everything will go to plan just because you want it to. So that's what the Fool card means. And before I continue, when you do tarot, cards can either come in the upright or in the reverse. So it can come up this way, the right way, which is what we call upright, and then it can go in the reverse, which is not necessarily bad. Basically, it usually is like a caution, you know, and then again, it all is determined by whatever reading you're gonna get, what you're asking, how the cards are laid, and what's being interpreted. But you always have a choice, whether upright or in reverse, to change your outcome. I want to stress that really strongly. You don't have to go by what the cards say. That's why we tell you to take what resonates and leave what doesn't. And if nobody tells you that or has told you that, now you know. So now the second card, or the number 1 card, is the Magician card. And that one is using your capabilities and resources to succeed, manifesting one's desires, the meeting of the physical and spiritual world in one's life, skill and determination. Now, with this card, I find that to be true. And, you know, with the Magician, you know, like in the reverse, that can mean a lot of things. But I found particularly interesting, I apologize, that's my phone for notifications, that when Andrew Waite was dissecting this card, he didn't necessarily like this card. He had, besides like the High Priestess and the Empress card and the Lovers card, he's had, I think, his most strictest, the most, I don't even think strictest is the word, is even a word, but like he was more strict with this card than any other card that I try to interpret through that book. Because basically, when the Magician card was first created as a trump card, it was fashioned after a lot of the tricksters of the day, the magicians of the day. And magicians weren't like, at least in Andrew Waite's mind, I'm not saying that it's true or not true, but in Andrew Waite's mind, magicians were not the most honest people. Magicians were not to be trusted, because a lot of magicians in Arthur Waite's experience swindled people out of their money, manipulated the ignorant, and basically took advantage of people who weren't aware of what was going on. So the positive side of this card, he didn't necessarily agree with, because he was a man who looked at the facts, and in his mind, the Magician card, upright or not, was just not a good card to have. And I totally disagree. I mean, if the card were to show up in the reverse, I would warn against manipulation or using your newfound gifts or your capabilities or resources to manipulate somebody. I can totally agree with that aspect, but from his opinion that the magician card is a terrible card, I don't think that that's accurate. Same with like the high priestess and the empress card 2 and 3. His views on those cards specifically and their inspiration were very misogynistic, but I understand given the time that book was written. It was written in 1901. Women didn't have any rights or were even considered equal until 1920. So his misogynistic views and limiting views about women were at the time accurate, but I completely disagree with his views and it was totally inaccurate. Like with the high priestess, you know, a lot of other tarot readers and people who were studying the craft, not necessarily alongside Wade, but at the same time he was studying them, like with the high priestess, she was a very mysterious woman. She represented tenacity and wisdom and, you know, intuition from the divine, and divine guidance is what they said. And as a woman, you know, we are very intuitive creatures. We're very mysterious creatures because we do come from a different makeup than a man does. So to a man, we may seem mysterious. To other women, we may seem mysterious. Heck, I mean, we're even mysterious unto our own selves, and we have great intuition. And for centuries, even now in some cases, women are still struggling to trust themselves, and to get that card in the upright is great. But I would caution, if you get that card in the reverse, is not to ignore your intuition. But if you are, you know, like having second doubts about something, or you need to reflect and retreat to think about things, it's fine. But don't let isolation and your like fears about something or assumptions about something or your inklings about something completely like guide your judgment about things. Talk about things if you can, do further research if you can't, confront the problem if you can, but use wisdom and use action and use your tenacity, use some of your mystery in order to do certain things. I swear to God, these people are loud on purpose. Anyway, so now the Empress card, which would be the third card in the spread for the major arcana, basically represents material influence, creation of life, fertility, art and romance, the mother aspect of all things, you know, creation and all of those things. Some people use it if they're doing cards about like your career, about, you know, entrepreneurship, birthing out something new. Doesn't necessarily mean having a child, but anything new that you put work into, like blood into, sweat into, tears into. That's a very good card that encourages you that basically, you know, while birthing something, it's going to take hard work. It's going to be strenuous. You're going to have nights when you cry. You're going to have some times where you're frustrated. You're going to have times where there's going to be pain involved, but the rewards are going to be endless if you just stick out the course. In the reverse, it cautions against you working too much, working too hard. You know, you're not just one thing. So like for me, I'm a struggling workaholic. I will work myself until I pass out, and I have done that plenty of times in my life, which is not okay. I will work myself like a dog sometimes, and I will burn myself out, and then I'm no use to even myself. And that's what that cautions against in the reverse. Basically, if you're going to be working towards your dreams and goals, do so with like the fire and grit that, you know, you've been innately like blessed with, but do so with caution. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because like with a natural pregnancy, you know, it's unfortunate that some women have to do it alone, but know that you never have to do it alone. I mean, although like, hey, you go through the process by yourself, you still, during the birthing process with a physical baby, you do have doctors, you do have nurses, you have people who will care for you. So if you don't see help coming, help is coming. That's a very encouraging card. But according to Wade, he didn't see that like the high priestess or the empress cards had any significance because they all come before, which is not true, because the fool and the magician are represented by men. But he did not like the fact for the second and the third card that they were women cards. And you have to remember, in 1901, women were seen as property. Women didn't really even have any rights. Women were not seen as equals to men. They didn't have a voice. They couldn't use their intuition. They couldn't use their wisdom. They were just created to have children and give a man status. And that's another reason why I love the Empress card and the High Priestess card, because they remind not just women, but any person who draws the card, that you're not just stuck to what somebody expects of you. You're not stuck to what society says of you. You're not even stuck to what you think about yourself. You are a multifaceted being, because that's how we were created. And, if you have different things that you're good at, or you have different dreams and goals, go ahead and do those things, because you're guided and protected by the divine. Nobody is going to stop you. Trials may come, but they will not triumph as long as you keep a good head, stay connected, and do the work that you felt that you're called to do, basically. So now with the Emperor card, which is the fourth card, is after the Empress, which basically means like he represents stability and security. He reminds you that you are in control, and he represents hard work, discipline, self-control, rules, and boundaries, which is a good card to have when you pull it. It's not saying that women can't have self-control in anything, and please don't believe that just because there's a male in one card with certain attributes, or women in another card that has certain attributes, that doesn't apply to the different sexes. Because information, principle, tarot, spirituality, there is no gender. If you need help, information is out there, knowledge is out there. It's not specific to one gender, it's not specific to one walk of life, it's not like specific to one race, one situation, one outcome. I mean, tarot and spirituality is for everybody. So if you do not already know, please know that just because there's like an emperor or an empress here, that does not necessarily mean that you can't resonate with any of these cards, because anyone can. You really can. It's all about the principle of the matter. So with the Emperor card in the upright, again, like it's like stability and control and discipline and boundaries and all of these things, which are very good. In the reverse, it cautions against being over controlling, because you can be in control of your life. You can set a boundary and be like, no, I don't want to do that. Yes, I would like to do so, but with X, Y, and Z involved, it's good to set boundaries, but don't close yourself off and control everything around you to where you can't let anybody in, is what that cautions against. It's good to be in control of your life, but when you need help or you feel like things are overwhelming, it's time for you to, excuse me, I'm running out of breath here, but it's time for you to kind of like put things into perspective, allow people to help you, like give people some tasks to do. So like, say like for me, I'm starting my own business, I'm doing things with my tarot, I'm doing things trying to get all these other businesses and stuff started and charms and things done. I want to get all of this stuff done, right? So which I probably need to go tomorrow, go do some other things. But anyway, I just brought some stuff to my remembrance. But anyway, so when it comes to that stuff, I right now, I'm in the beginning stages of things. So I'm trying to figure out what this is, what that is, prices of things, and how things are going to work in the market, where I need to sell, and all this other stuff. I'm doing all the information, and it's great. But as my business grows, I'm not going to be taking on a lot of things. I can't take on everything by myself, and that doesn't mean I can't do it. It's just, as a business grows, there's a lot of things that a business needs. There's a lot of things that a business has to take care of. There's payroll eventually that I'm going to have to worry about. There's staffing I'm eventually going to have to worry about, stock, and what I need to invest in, and all this other stuff that I'm going to have to worry about. And I won't be able, not saying that it's not possible, but I'd say it wouldn't be wise to try and take on all of that by yourself. That's why you delegate things to other people, and that's what that card in reverse would warn you about. Is it's okay to be in control of your life. It's okay to work hard and discipline yourself, and have self-control and do all these great things when it comes to doing anything in your life, whether it's relationships, money, inner work, and all of these things. But it also, like the Empress and the High Priestess, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to know that you're not alone. Go with your intuition and do the hard work and determination, and have the determination to do things. But with the Emperor card specifically, don't be afraid to ask for help, because you are not alone in whatever you need to do. Like, you don't have to prove to everybody that you can do it. Sometimes it's great. The greatest strength you can have is asking somebody for help. Now, for the second group of 5 cards, you have the Hierophant, the Lovers, the Chariot, the Strength card, and the Hermit card. So with the Lovers card, the Hierophant first, that represents like spiritual wisdom, the tradition of something, moral ethics, guidance, possibilities of things happening, and conformity. Now, I don't like the word conformity just because it usually has to do with, like, from my experience, conformity had to do with a lot of sacrificing oneself in order to, like, reach a goal that didn't resonate with me. But in the context of conformity, with the Hierophant being in the upright, I think, I really don't like that connotation of that word, because it's to conform to an idea that better serves a bigger purpose, but which is a good thing if you're using it in a positive light, like seeing another person's perspective in order to get like something done. But to conform in that sense, I think that's not a good thing. But that's just me personally. I don't really like using that word conformity because it has such a negative connotation with me. But anyway, the spiritual wisdom, the tradition, the guidance of a thing. It's really, really nice, because sometimes you got to go back to the basics of a thing in order to move forward. But I believe it also it cautions in the reverse that although there are some things that are founded in tradition, is to keep an open mind about certain things. And when it comes to possibility, it's great to keep an open mind about what could happen next, but also be aware of like the practicality of a matter. So the Hierophant card, in my opinion, is a very like elusive card to try and decipher. You would need, that's why I love like having the minor arcana, because that's where I would go and clarify a situation with just those. Sometimes when that card comes up, or I have oracle cards, which we will get into a whole nother video to clarify that card. But again, it all depends, especially with this card, what context the card comes up in and what you're reading for. So the Lover's card, that has to do with like relationships, making decisions, a balance of forces and sacrifice. So the Lover's card, that usually only comes up when I do a tarot deck, when I am asking about a specific relationship in my life. For me personally, it has been romantic here lately. I haven't really had to ask for platonic relationships, but maybe that's a sign I need to actually do that. But with the Lover's card, it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It can be platonic. It could be a relationship with a family member. It could be a relationship with a friend, a coworker, a boss. It doesn't have to be romantic to where somebody has to end up in a committed relationship with somebody. But it also and when the lovers are depicted, they're usually like, especially like with the Light Seer's Tarot, like it's a beautiful illustration of like what love can be like. Like when you look at the card, you can totally tell that the couple in that card are like completely in love with each other. Like, you know, their eyes are only on each other. It's like a beautiful representation of love. But in the reverse, it warns you to stay away from obsession about a thing, to encourage temptation about certain things, you know, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like obsession is a very slippery slope. Like with me, I am obsessed with like horror video games, and I love like ghost stories and like haunted house hunts, but I'm not obsessed to the point that where that is my entire being and I do not focus on anything else. Like I have other interests and it's within balance, and that's what it's, the balance of forces. Yes, I can be obsessed with the paranormal. That is something I am completely committed to, and I have eyes for it, but only in that moment because I have other things I have to do. So it's like balancing things. Have your vices, if that's a better way to put it, but it cautions against making that your only priority when you're starting to ignore more important things. You know what I mean? And you know, it also warns you to make sure, like especially in romantic relationships, because that can get tricky, that you guys are cohesive in wherever you're going next, because you can't have one ideal and the other person have one ideal and you guys don't talk about it, come to a compromise, because eventually it's gonna clash. And that's just an inevitable thing. You can work out a situation, but it's telling you that make sure, you know, like you're not going to agree on everything because everybody's their own individual. But when it comes to like, especially like your hopes, your dreams, your plan for life and what's going on in the future, talk to your partner about those things, because if you just assume that your partner's going to stay the same way for the rest of their life, you're going to put yourself up for utter disappointment. And when you're obsessed with somebody, when you're so engrossed in somebody that they become your life and you can't literally live without them, you can't do anything, you always have to do things together, like that puts a strain on any relationship, platonic or not. So it just cautions against, you know, loving too much to where it becomes toxic, where it becomes like poisonous, if that makes sense. Like you can love salt so much it can make you sick, you know, that type of thing. So yeah, that's the Lover's card. And then you have the Chariot card. That one is a very empowering card to me. Like it represents overcoming conflict and moving forward with positivity, like the will of focus and like utter willpower. Like with the Chariot card, it's like, you know, it's an encouraging card to like, you know, keep moving forward and letting you know that your spirit guides are also with you, your ancestors, you know, the universe. You have the team, you know, of like, you know, the world behind you. Give me 1 second, because the baby needs to charge. Give me 1 second. Let me hook up my computer here. But yeah, basically that card specifically talks about how you basically are empowered by the universe to do whatever you're doing, and you know, to keep going and have the willpower to move forward. But when that card is in reverse, usually at least when I pull that card, a lot of people are in that area of like self-doubt. I mean, that card came out with me I think earlier this afternoon, because if I haven't stated before, I pull cards for myself, just to make sure that one, I'm aligned with my spirit guides and stuff like that. And so I practice my craft on a daily, and in any way, shape, or form, whether that be meditation, pulling cards, you know, interpreting my dreams, getting, you know, more information. I try to keep hone on my craft on a daily. And I was pulling for myself because I'm, you know, like in a moment of transition right now, to where it's like, okay, like spirit, like I'm going through some of the stuff, and some of this stuff that I'm going through right now, I'm like, I had no, like, none of this was a result because I did something necessarily wrong. And if I did, it wasn't brought to my attention. And, now I'm sitting here, Spirit, and I feel like, because I'm going to be honest with y'all. So I quit my job at McDonald's, and I'm like, I hate this job. I am not being used for what I feel like I need to be. This is not my purpose. I am not aligned with my purpose. I gave it 6 months, and I've been fighting the system for years, and I'm like, you know what, I'm done. I cannot do this. I mean, I feel like my gifts aren't being used, my knowledge isn't being used. And then there was some other conflict at that job that I do not want to talk about right now because we will be here for like another 2 hours. And this video is already long as is. But, getting comfortable with my spirituality and things like that, I was like, I am so done with this job. And so then, after I left that job, I'm like, I'm starting my business. I had my own little side hustle going. I was doing DoorDash. Like, I was doing good. Like, and then after that, my car started to give out on me. And like, I'm like, I'm going to all these people trying to see what's going on with my car. Her name was Penelope. She was a 1988 Chevy Celebrity. She was so beautiful. I loved that car to death. And I mean, she was my first car. That was the first thing I ever owned by myself. Like, I paid for her. I worked for her. I did everything on that car. So it was just amazing. Like, it was a feeling of independence that I've never had before. And I loved that car. And so, like, she's starting to give out on me, and I'm just like, what's wrong with her? Like, I don't have the wherewithal to do things. And, because I don't have anybody really who could help me in that area, like, I went to go to like several mechanics, and they're like, hun, you need to scrap her unless you can find somebody who actually has the money, the time, and the energy to work on her, because basically this car is scrap. And I'm like, oh my God, like, I can't, like, I mean, her power steering pump was completely messed up. The brakes were just completely shot. A couple of days ago, like, her tire completely blew on me, and I almost got like in a car accident. I wouldn't even be here today, bro. Like, in heavy traffic, like, we were zooming in heavy traffic, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. And I mean, that happened, and then there's transition between me and my roommates right now, and it's just not working out. And I'm like, look, I'm trying to be as hospitable as possible, but it's just not working out. And so I'm just like, what the fuck, man? It's just not doing its thing, and there's some other things that are going on. And so I'm just like, man, like, I'm trying to do my best here. I finally thought that, I'm at a place where things are good, and I'm just like, damn, like, it's nobody's fault. But I'm like, man, I'm in a point of transition where it's like, it's not spiritual attack. Nobody's attacking me. It's just life, and life happens. And I'm like, Spirit, I've been through so much transition in my life. I've been through so much loss in my life. I get to a point where I feel like I'm on top of the world, and then I just get the legs like completely ripped from, like, the rug is completely just ripped from underneath me. And I mean, I'm still here. I'm still alive. I mean, my roommates have been gracious and giving me some time to figure shit out. But I'm like, and some things have happened with my car to where, like, that worked itself out. But I'm just like, man, like, what are my next steps, Spirit? Because I'm like, there's so many things going on, and my resources or the little connections I have seem to not be working right now. And I feel like I'm failing here. Like, all I have is this business. This is all I have right now. And I'm trying to work on me, like, not being an alcoholic and being a perfectionist. So I'm like, this feels counterproductive to what I want to do right now. I'm literally spending my waking hours and some of my sleeping hours pouring myself into this business. And I just don't understand why the habit I'm trying to break is the only thing I can do right now. And so it pulled out the Chariot card, and it was in the upright. And then I was just like, oh, That's a comfort to me, because basically, like I said, we're here, we're guiding you, you're gonna make it to the finish line. Continue to use that willpower, but don't get so caught up in your situation that you forget that you have divine resources. It doesn't have to be physical. You have resources, you have the wisdom, you have the wherewithal. Like, don't give up on yourself, like, keep going. And I'm like, but what if I cry, or what if I get frustrated? Because again, I'm a perfectionist, so if things don't look right, or things don't happen the way I think they should happen, like, I can only take so much before I completely collapse and I completely just like lose it. And I've had some days in between these couple of days where I was just like, man, I just can't seem to get it together. And it's just life. Some days are frustrating, some days are not the ideal days. And it's been hard for me these past couple of years to work with the up and down of things. And it was just a reminder today while I was doing my reading on a lot of other things as well. It was like, you're gonna be fine. Wheels are turning in your favor. It's just, patience. And I think that's something we often miss with the Chariot card. Have patience. Things are working out. We're working in your favor. You're going to get to the destination. Your destination is imminent. You just have to get there, and that's going to take time. So yeah, that was my little spat about the Chariot card, basically saying that's one of my favorite cards. So I am so sorry. That's my battery. It's just not doing what I need it to do right now. Everything's like low-key dying on me. But I'm sorry, that's my microphone. Give me 1 second. But yeah, basically, I love that card. The Chariot card is one of my favorite cards. But anywho, that's the 7th card. Then we have the 8th card. That's the Strength card, which is basically power, energy, the courage, and the triumphant conclusion after like completing a test or something. It's a very successful card, just reminding you that you have the strength to move. Like, power and action and inspiration is on its way to you. Again, it's reoccurring like instances with these cards, like reminding you that strength is good, but you don't have to do things in your own strength. And figuring things out. And strength can also be in numbers, but sometimes it also cautions against being codependent, because yes, it's good to have people, but when I usually pull the Strength card in my readings, or like here lately with like some of my friends and stuff, it's been not cautioning, but encouraging more inner strength. Like, you're more powerful than you think. It's good to have people and friends and stuff, but there are some things that you have to do that require inner strength, that require you to do things that you never thought you could do. And that's why I love that card. It's a great card. It's beautiful. And with strength comes grace, with strength comes wisdom, with strength comes patience, it comes with temperance and all of these beautiful things. But you have to have the willpower and the courage to take those things on that you feel like you couldn't. And when you start being bold and courageous, you'll realize you have strength that you didn't know you had. So that's the 8th card, which is the Strength card. And then you have the Hermit card, which a lot of people interpret as going within and finding the inner strength to do something. But I love Arthur Waite's, like, if I can agree with any of his views on any of the cards, it would be this card right here. He believes that the Hermit card is not finding inner strength. It's recognizing the inner strength that you've always had inside of you. And with the light and the staff that he carries, it's the light of the divine guiding you, and basically the knowledge and the wisdom that you carry with you to go through any dark period of your life. So it's like it's recognizing the strength you already have and being guided by the light that's already inside you, given to you by the divine. Like, it's amazing. Like, you have to read his book. Like, this is the book. I don't know if they have a deciphered, like, modern English version of this book, but y'all need to get this book. And maybe one day, like, somebody will make a shortened version. Maybe there's like a pocket book version or an easier version to understand this. But I'm like, guys, y'all gotta get this book and read it for yourselves, because like I said, although his views are somewhat dated and somewhat, like, you know, a little ignorant in some areas and arrogant in some, he has some good points. He has some good points, and his whole ideals about the Hermit card is like really, really good. And then in the reverse of that card, basically, it's like, basically, if you need advice, ask for it, you know. If you need understanding, look within, like, you know, and ask your divine guides especially. But yeah, that study on the Hermit card was just eye-opening to me. I never even saw that card in a different light. I always thought, you know, you got to go in and find yourself. And it's like, no, he's like, that's a representation of you going through life and figuring things out with the knowledge you already have. The hermit is not one who figures out something. He has inner wisdom and seeing things from different perspective. It's a great study. So then you have the Wheel of Fortune, the Justice, the Hangman, the Death card, and the Temperance card. So the Wheel of Fortune is a good card, you know. It's a card of change. It's a card of destiny. It's a card, you know, like of luck. And that's a good card up in the upright. It's a very good card. And even in, I just don't like the black and white of the card, because the Wheel of Fortune in the upright or not, I believe represents karma. Like, I guess in the upright, you're like, oh, you got good karma, and then the reverse, you got bad karma. But depending on the reading, as I have found, in the upright or in the reverse, sometimes that's not a clear indication of anything that's good or bad or not. If anything, I believe that card represents being adaptable in its most sense. Like, because fate can take a turn whether your life is in the upright or not. So, like, depending on a reading, like if somebody gets in a card in the reverse and they're already down, you know, I feel like you gotta, like, I had a reading to where somebody was going through some, like, deep crap. And basically, I was doing a reading on trying to figure things out. And, like, the person was already, like, going through stuff. But the Wheel card came out in reverse. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. But it's reverse on my end. But it's, you know, upright on his end. And I'm like, what does that mean, Spirit? Because I, the practitioner, am reading this card right now, and the way I read, you know, I feel like I'm a source of the divine. So I'm not sitting as myself. I'm sitting as the divine talking to my querent or my client. And so I'm like, what is going on here, Spirit? Like, I'm not understanding. Like, this person's already going through crap, but why are you showing me in the reverse? And they explicitly, like, showed me as I was going throughout the reading, it's like, this person just needs to change their perspective. They're already in, like, basically in this rut. So this is how they see things. And I was like, oh, so you're showing me that even in, like, the rut of things, there's always a change of perspective. And they're like, yeah, pretty much. And I'm like, it doesn't matter how you put it, because, like, with some of the spreads that I use and the spread that I was using, I'm like, this is supposed to be like the possible outcome is destruction. You're giving all these positives, but it's destruction. It's like, no, you just need to flip the tables on things, because I've had some people who were in, you know, good moods, but it's just like, you know, it reveals so many things. Like, I have to do studies on each card one day. I mean, it's just, and like testimonials and how I read. I'll have to show you guys all this stuff, but it's just so cool. Anyway, it like I said, I don't think the Wheel, and like I said with any card, I don't think any card, whether it's in the upright or not, has a definitive meaning just based on the card placement. Like, it does influence a reading sometimes, but I don't believe that, you know, it's just in those fixed points that you can read a card from. Like, it's interesting because cards fall in different ways. But then that's the Wheel of Fortune card. That's the 10th card. So the 11th card is the Justice card, which basically of course, represents balance and truth and law and fairness, but I also use that card specifically for looking at both sides of the coin, like especially when it comes out in like my interpersonal readings with people. It's embracing the dark side of oneself, because again, I have to praise the Light Seer's Tarot. You have a light side and a dark side, literally on the opposite sides of the scales, and I believe that's reflection on oneself and creating balance and fairness and taking accountability for one's own mistakes, taking accountability for all aspects of self, not just the parts you want people to see, but the stuff that lies beneath the surface. And
Battery low.
why is that battery low? You're supposed to be plugged up, silly goose. That is so weird. You're supposed to be plugged up, my sweet. Where are you? There you go. I'm like, yeah, you're supposed to be plugged up, silly goose. But yeah, basically, that card in the reverse, if anything, again, like, there's nothing bad about having that card in reverse. It's literally just taking a look at oneself and taking accountability for all that is there, because I can get that depending on a reading and be upright or not. Again, it just depends on how you're reading, what you're reading, and who you're reading for. It's amazing. So then you have the Hanged Man, and Arthur Waite doesn't really give a clear definition. He just basically talks about how he believes that the representation of the Hanged Man is dumb from the original deck. And I'm like, sir, that's not an explanation of how a card is supposed to be, what a card is supposed to be, but whatever, to each his own. I mean, you're doing the study, you're pioneering in these things, you're bound to have error, just like I'm bound to have error. But he gave two, from what I can draw, two very like basic like interpretations of what those cards mean, of the Hangman means. In one breath, he was talking about how the Hangman represented basically a man caught up in his own like temptations and vices, and how basically that if a man wasn't careful, he would end up looking like a fool, basically, and like looking foolish, and basically cause his own destruction if he wasn't careful. He also looked at a study by this other guy. I mean, these people had some very elaborate names, and I didn't take the time to remember them because they were so elaborate. But he went through multiple studies, and there was one study he was looking at from another person, like diving into the science of divinity at the time. And he was talking about how one ponders about a situation, and has become stagnant because of that pondering, and what he needed was a change of perspective. That's why they had him upside down, because if you change the card in the reverse, it looks like he's standing up. So he's like, depending on the situation you're in, you need a change of perspective. But there was this one guy that I found fascinating. He said that the Hangman to him represented the fact that you don't need to make yourself look like a fool in order to be noticed or seen, because in one of the pictures of the original cards that the Hangman was designed over, you had this man in elaborate clothes and things like that, but he was hung upside down and was being made a spectacle of. And it was like, it doesn't matter how well you look on the outside and how pristine and perfect you think you look. If you're making yourself look stupid for the admiration of others, you're at a detriment to yourself. And I was like, whoa, I can agree with all three of those definitions from those three different studies. But according to Andrew Waite, he's just like, that's just a dumb description. And he's like, basically he just hated the art and he hated the way it was designed. He basically went on to say that I don't care what these guys basically interpreted. He sounds, I'm not gonna lie, he sounds like a bit of an asshole. He has some good insight, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, man, some of his judgments and some of his opinions about like the artistry of the cards and all of this other stuff. Like he was a real asshole. He was a little mean. But I'm trying to get through this, as quickly as possible because we have literally been here for an hour. So yeah, that's the Hangman card. That's the 12th card. So the 13th card is the Death card. And I know this has been preached 10 to 15 million times, so I'm not going to dwell on this. This rarely, if ever, means physical death. So if you get this card, please do not think you are going to die. If anybody you love is going to die, no. It basically represents the beauty of, like the ending of a cycle, the ending of a thing, because although things end and it's really, really sad, there's also a chance of rebirth, starting something new, if that makes sense. Okay. I guess I'm going to turn this off.
Power off.
Yes, thank you. Because usually my phone will, my speaker will charge while I'm using it, but I think it's just literally that dead. But then again, I have it plugged up to another source, so that's probably why it won't charge. But anyway, so with the Death card, again, it's not a card that's supposed to spook you. It basically goes over the beauty of ending a cycle and starting something new, which I've been getting in my readings a lot here lately. It's like, remember, this is not something to cry over. Like, basically, like, things are ending, yes, but you're also starting something new. So that means something has to give in order for you to get, basically. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But also, like, I rarely, if ever, like, get that card in reverse. But in reverse, it doesn't mean that, because a lot of people that I've watched, because I don't just do tarot for like myself and stuff, I watch other tarot readers too, to gain different perspective, and make sure that I'm not going crazy, and like on a general sense, to make sure I'm tapped into what's going on in the general public, in the general collective of the tarot community and spiritual community. But I noticed a lot of people, when they get death in the reverse, they're very negative about it. It's just like a lot of them preach about, oh, destruction is going to happen, like whether you like it or not. And I don't see it in that context. I see it as more like a warning, like spirit kind of tapping you on the shoulder. It's like, hey, here's something you need to look at, because I'm just letting you know, because that's how kind I am. This may need to come to an end. Not like, okay, you're not listening, this is coming to an end whether you like it or not. I don't like the way that has been represented. And, I know people don't mean to come off that way, but some people are like, no, that's what that means. And I'm like, no, at least that's what I don't think that means. I really think it's like, I think it's a gentle reminder, like, hey, this isn't producing anything positive for you. I think you might want to consider letting this go. And then eventually, sometimes like in readings, it'll pop up that it'll eventually come into the upright when it's time for that cycle to end. But I always feel like spirit always gives you like a warning or a heads up before something like that drastically happens. So, like I said, that's just me personally. That's what I think that means. So yeah, I better wrap this up because I only have about like 22 minutes left on this laptop before it dies, but I might do a part 2. Let's see how fast I can get through this. So for the 14th card, that's Temperance. A lot of that has to do with, patience, avoiding extremes, moderation, being frugal, and like economy. So basically like counting your pentacles and things like that, or your possessions and things like that. Like basically being moderate in whatever it is you're doing, not just with materialistic things or money, but also doing things in moderation. So like, and being, more patient with somebody, and, avoiding extremes. For me, when that card comes up, a lot of that has to do with my emotions because I can be very extreme with them. I can be on one extreme or another. And for me, it's kind of like balancing that out and not going to the extreme of a thing. Because like my anxiety it's gotten a lot better, but it's like there are still some instances where I can kind of go off the rails with things. And you know, I can get extremely anxious, and so I tend to lash out sometimes. And you know, it's gotten a lot better, but you know, like I still have those moments. But you know, when temperance comes up, or it, like, not even in just a reading, like in my mind, or I'm somehow reminded of that card, you know, it's kind of like, okay, you don't have to go through the extremes and things. Take patience, do things in moderation. And moderation is just like, you know, take it down 1,000. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be like, don't make a mountain out of a molehill, basically, and learn how to balance things out. It's gonna take time, but learning how to balance things out. We're almost done, I swear. We got 15 through 19, 20, and 21, and then we're done. So let me see how fast I can get through this. So we have the Devil card, the Tower card, the Star, the Moon, and the Sun. So with the Devil card, I know the original interpretation, well, the most common interpretation is like a Baphomet-like figure. And you know, you have the pentagram, and then you have like an angel and a devil, or you have like humans with horns, depending on things like that. Andrew Waite has a great study in his book about the original like context of the devil card and its creation, because that depiction I just described is actually not the first depiction of the card. So, you know, yeah, like I said, get the book. We'll have the study, but I gotta go. Basically, the devil does not mean, when you get that card, that somebody is evil or possessed. That somebody's possessed by the devil. You're working with the devil. You're about to be, you know, in cahoots with the devil. That's not what that means. That's not what that means. And anybody who has told you that is wrong. And I am so sorry if somebody told you that. But the devil card does not mean anything sinister. You're not, you know, you're not associated with the devil himself in any way. But if you subscribe to that, kudos to you. But that's not what that means. Basically, when the devil card comes up, reverse or not, it talks about temptation a lot. Being seduced by materialistic things, or things that do not serve you, or things that, like, you know, you've heard this saying, like, the grass is greener on the other side, and not being content with what you have, and, you know, thinking that somebody's better or something is better. I think that was Freudian slip, but maybe somebody need to know that. But like, something or someone is better than what you already have, or who you are already with, and things like that. And that's not the case. You know, the devil card reminds you, or blatantly tells you, yo, you're kind of getting sidetracked by things that don't matter. You know, your gratitude is going out the window here. It's time for you to fall back and regroup, be grateful for what you have, and then take, you know, inventory of what seems to be guiding you off course. What is guiding you to do things that you normally wouldn't do? What are you compromising yourself, your morals, your beliefs, your ways of doing things in order to obtain this one thing? Is this basically it encourages you to take stock of what you have, and take stock of what you're doing, and to be grateful. You know, and sometimes it does, you know, implicate, like, you may be bound to something. But again, like, unless, I haven't really had that connotation with that card, unless I've worked with somebody who's like been cursed or something, or like bound with hexes or something like that. So that implication of being completely bound to something doesn't really come out unless you have somebody physically bound to like a hex or a curse or something. So the Tower card, this can mean several things, like sudden change, liberation, higher learning. A lot of people have preached destruction, and it's, when you look at it, you know, like, it's just like, man, like, there's people falling out of this tower, you know, the tower's crumbling, parts of it are on fire, you know, like, it looks like a very scary card, almost like the devil card. But again, I don't believe that the physical depiction of the card in its pictorial sense is what the card actually means. Because again, I praise the creator, Chris Ann, I think those are two last names, but if your name is Chris Ann, like, bro, thank you for that card, because it's a great card. I'm gonna have to turn the speaker on again so I can charge my Thank you. So I can charge this laptop. So I'm sorry if it says battery low on it. I just need to get through this, and the battery's not going to last that long. Basically, the tower card, especially the way Chris and Ann designed that card, you see the tower card, and you can see that when the lightning strikes, this specific tower card, it's not striking the tower itself, and the entity that's underneath it. I don't want to spoil the card for you. It's a beautiful card. It's literally striking objects that I believe symbolize that no longer serve the entity that's in that card. And I believe that any destruction or any sudden change that may happen, like in my life specifically, it's not attacking you. It's not happening to you, as we say, it's happening for you. And like I said in that card, the way this card is specifically depicted, it's striking things that I believe represent that no longer serves the individual. I mean, because it still has some of its resources, it still has, its protection, it still has other elements in its life that'll keep that entity stable, but it's taking away certain things that do not belong or aren't, like, no longer serve that entity. So I believe that, reverse or not, that card represents an imminent change or an inevitable change, but depending on how you see it, it could be detrimental to you or it could be helpful to you. It all depends on perspective. Now you have the star card, which is the 17th card in this deck. That would be a symbol of renewed hope, true blessing, insight, enlightenment, faith, and inspiration. I think that's self-explanatory, just to remind yourself to have hope. And, if you need your hope renewed, it can happen for you, just reminding you, like, things can happen. And if you need an aha moment, it's coming towards you. The 18th card is the moon card. And that has to do with self-sabotage, I believe, because with the moon card, it's often depicted, like, again, like with, like, this card, like these cards and stuff that I work with, they all have different, like pictures and like different ways they're illustrated, but it has a lot to do, from where I resonate with, no matter what deck I use, it has to do with a lot of self-sabotage. It has to deal with a lot of like doubts in oneself, and that's what it really says, like misunderstood inklings about oneself in a situation. It also cautions against like things that are hidden. So like in the reverse, like if I have it in the upright, that card is like, okay, like you have some that scared me low-key. You have some self-limiting beliefs about yourself, and you kind of want to rise above all of that and deal with that. But then on the other hand, if I have that reversed, that usually shows me, and so far it's never been wrong, there are things that you do not see because you are in denial, or because you just clearly do not see. Like, you may have some hidden enemies you never thought about before. There's just like some things that are maybe off, or there's a part of your life you need to look at. Things are not always what they seem. So it's basically calling you to be aware of any self-limiting beliefs, whether that be internally or externally, and then trying and finding the resources, whether it be the divine with friends or family, to kind of try and uplift you and get you out of that rut. And so we have the 19th card, that's the sun card, which, is representative of, you think of the sun as happiness and contentment and, like self-confidence and success and all of that, joy and harmony. If that would come up in the reverse, I usually just tell my clients, like that song, yeah, don't worry, just be happy, you're gonna be okay. That doesn't mean like, you just brush up all your issues like nothing is going on, but it's just like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Like after rain there comes a rainbow. And I believe in the original card of the pictorial tarot that Andrew Waite created, there is a rainbow with the sun card. So it's like, yo, everything's gonna be okay. Build up your self-confidence. You know, you are capable, you are enough. Joy comes in the morning, that type of thing. So yeah, that's the Sun card. And now we are at the last two, the World card and the Judgment card. So the World card represents like the ending of a cycle, everything being complete, as above so below. So it's like, just like there's prosperity up in the heavenlies and the universe has everything under control, you have everything under control. So it's just like whatever you put out in the universe will eventually come back to you. Everything happens in a cycle. It's like a sign of good karma. Like, you know, again, if I had that in the reverse, I would warn against, you know, like any negative feelings about that, just as a reminder, like, hey, you know, what you put in the universe comes back in full circle, you know. But it also means duality in all things. So like, just like there is like, you know, male and female, you know, there's dog and cat, you know, there's like open and close, and I'm just using those things, so don't come at me. I'm not just saying there's only male and female. I'm just saying in context, you know, like there are things that are definitive, but there's also a duality in things. Like, so that's why we have like, you know, like they and them, and you know, and all of the other pronouns. Like, yes, there's male and female, but there's also a duality in things. That's where you get the they and them from, because, you know, not everybody identifies with what's considered black and white. There's a whole duality that makes everything complete. Does that make sense? And then the last card is the Judgment card, which is like a sign of resurrection, or like an awakening of things, finding your spiritual calling, transformation, things changing. You know, I've been getting the Judgment card a lot too, in my readings. Because it's like, it's just time for transformation. It's time for a cycle, you know, to begin. You're in transition. So hold on, be strong, you know, don't worry about the outcome. It's all going to work out in your favor. You know, anything that, you know, you've given up on or didn't think was going to work will work. You know, you just have to have faith and believe that it will. But yeah, that's the major arcana and the minor arcana cards in its basic, most simplistic, like explanation that I could give on such short notice, because if I did any more research and gave you all the deeper meanings, which I will eventually do, I'll go over each card more in depth, but for the sake of time, because we've almost been on here for an hour and a half. Yeah, that's your major and minor arcana cards. The next video I will do for you guys would be the 3 spreads that I work with, and how I read those cards, and then I guess yeah, we'll get into the fun stuff about like, yes, I understand, about how I get into like the cards and stuff that I choose, and you know, like all the other fun stuff is yet to come. We kind of got to get through the boring stuff in order to get to the fun stuff. So yeah, thank you guys. If you guys stayed this long watching this video, I appreciate you. I also appreciate your patience. And waiting for this video to come out. I am hoping to cram out more videos here soon and possibly get more product out to you guys. So yeah, thank you so much for your patience and your willingness to stick on to this video. Like, share, and subscribe, and comment if you feel like it. And yeah, I will catch you guys in the next video.